Let's talk about disability shaming. A century ago, nonconformity was generally death, right? You could live with your parents up to a certain point, and then you got married. So they didn't have the resources to support people. So if you're an artist and you don't make money, if you're gay and you don't want to get married because you're just a friend, because no one accepts your, sexual orientation, you don't want to get married, you want to have a roommate, you've got to have a career. You've got to be like academically able enough to have a career, right? You don't want to have a kid. You have a kid and you're not married. All that stuff. Considered shameful because it meant that your parents would have to support you. In the factory era, you had to conform. And so this goes for disabilities. So, executive dysfunction, messiness, sensory overload, disorganization, chronic fatigue, and being late for things. All of that was not acceptable, right? And now it is, because we have more awareness, because we're talking to each other. So it's not so much that now we are weaker. Why are there all these gay people all of a sudden? Well, just like left-handed people, that's all over the internet, right? Same thing with disability. That has always been the case. It's just that we labeled people drunks or, disabled mentally and then shamed them for it. Locked people away in asylums because we just didn't want to be ashamed. Sent them to live with a different relative. And then pretended that they were less related to us than they were. All of the things that we deal with today, we have always dealt with. But it's that in past decades, about a century ago, things were survival-based, and you were expected to stay in a conformity-based job for decades. Now that is not how you survive. In the past, admitting to a disability meant virtual death. But let's not forget that half the population couldn't vote, own their own homes, cars, credit cards. You had to get married. You had to be normal. Or you were virtually disowned. So all the shoulds that we've inherited, all the I'm ashamed of you for being a slob, I'm ashamed of you for being late, I'm ashamed of you for blah, why can't you get it together? All of that stuff is because that meant you were not going to be able to make it. But now you can. So is it that we are getting weaker, or is it that we're getting more accepting? Sorry, my hand I'm having muscle spasms in my hand. Ouch. Shoot. I switched to my other one. So something to think about there. Because I also think our general health and quality of life is declining. I don't think it's normal for someone who's 28 and doesn't have a manual job to have muscle spasms in my hand so much that I can't hold a rectangle for 4 minutes. This is not normal. And we have what anthropologists call, I believe it's called secondary illnesses, like heart disease and diabetes, that a lot of other cultures don't have. So, while I should be ashamed that I'm not wearing enough makeup, I have bad skin, not because I'm unclean, but because I don't know, I can't find out why. It's been 11 years. I shouldn't talk about my health issues. You shouldn't be able to see my towels and pillowcases sitting there on my bookshelf. That's a very convenient place to put them. You shouldn't see that. Why? I'm a human being. We're all human beings. Why do we have to have this idol culture where we have teachers and policemen and priests and we just have to do what they say? Why? They're people. And you know what? They have imposter syndrome. That's not because some people think that they are legitimately better than everyone else. That's true. But all of us are hiding our flaws to one degree or another. So I would argue that we are getting sicker and we are getting less and less able to hide our non-normal things about ourselves. We're working more hours. More people are working more hours. Fewer people are choosing to have kids, which is a choice now. It was not a choice a century ago. It wasn't a choice for me to not have kids, have a credit card, and have a car. I'm lucky if I get to vote, right? So, we are finally getting more rights in a more diverse array of circumstances, but I think it's because we are getting sicker and we are less able to cover our issues with coping mechanisms. And so we are accidentally showing all of our issues to each other, and so it's becoming more normal. And that is not to say that I'm conflating sexual orientation with some kind of defect. It's not meant to sound ableist at all. It's that our ableist culture was based on survival. Our transphobic and homophobic tendencies in our culture were based on conformity. It is to model humans after one-size-fits-all interchangeable parts. That innovation that led to the Industrial Revolution, we then tried to, it's like reverse anthropomorphizing? I don't know. What's the word for that? I only got a bachelor's in anthropology. There has to be a word. But we took our one-size-fits-all for machine parts and put that on our people.